It is Monday, September 25th, and this is a Fox News alert. A Hero Church usher coming face to face with the gunman who ambushed a packed Sunday service.
I sit and think, what if he pulled the trigger because he had the gun pointed at him?
What we just learned about the Sudanese immigrant accused in the attack.
And you can hear the boos. NFL fans outraged after hundreds of players disrespected the flag on game day, and the president refusing to sit on the sidelines over this controversy.
This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with respect for our country and respect for our flag.
Well, the anthem protests and the outrage now spreading across professional sports. We have team coverage and analysis on that.
And the tougher, the better. President Trump's brand new travel restrictions taking effect overnight. The country's accused of not doing enough to block terrorists. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
And so we want to talk a little bit about what's happening here with these protests and everything like that, and kind of the interesting thing, which I actually didn't even remember that had happened, but it was actually very interesting to see this, that the NFL in the past, President Obama actually implemented a policy where they started paying the NFL to require the players to be on the field for the national anthem, to stand for the national anthem, and they paid the NFL owners to get them to do that, to try and bring more patriotism to the games, and I think try to increase recruitment for our military.
Part of recruitment, and when we talk about money that was paid, you can take a look at this. The NFL actually paid, they were paid to the NFL $5.4 million. That was from 2011 to 2014, 6.1, I should say, and then the NFL agreed to pay back $723,000 of that in 2016. So a lot of money exchanged hands, paying to show patriotism. So now, of course, the double standard being now that they are actually encouraging them, some people encouraging them not to do that.
And yeah, it is very interesting, and you think about it, it's just kind of, it's bizarre all the way around, because you had a president that was, that wanted to decrease the size of the military, and for whatever reason, that same president paying the NFL to stand for the American flag and for the national anthem in order to increase recruitment for the military. That was bizarre on its own. Let's listen to Steve Mnuchin, it's our Treasury Secretary, talking about what's happening here. Let's hear his side.
The NFL has all different types of rules. You can't have stickers on your helmet. You have to have your jerseys tucked in. I think what the president is saying is that the owner should have a rule that players should have to stand in respect for the national anthem. They have the right to have their First Amendment off the field. This is a job, and the employers have the right, when the players are working, to have rules. Why didn't the Dallas Cowboys, why were they not allowed to wear stickers in response to people they wanted to pay respect to? So the NFL is picking and choosing what they want to enforce. And the president says, for a long time, the national anthem, this isn't about politics. This is about respect for the country and the people who have made great, great sacrifices for this country.
It is true what he said. I mean, they weren't allowed in Dallas to put stickers on their helmets or in any way say that they were standing up for the police officers there.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We do want to discuss more of this and actually get some former NFL players in to talk about this, and we're going to try and get both of them. Right now, we're going to go to former NFL safety Burgess Owens, who is live for us here. We're still waiting on Randall Hill to kind of discuss this as well. But if we can go to you, Mr. Owens, just for a second and just kind of get your take on this. What did you make of what happened yesterday? This really blew up from just a few players to a good chunk, I think, about 1 in 8 players kneeling for the national anthem yesterday. Mr. Owens, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. And I guess let me just start off real quickly what the flag stands for. And the reason why my dad came back from World War II, he taught us, that generation taught us to respect the flag because it was all about hope. It lets us know that we're in a country, if you work hard, you play the game right, you can do anything you want to, as we've shown with the black president over the last 8 years. Where we are right now is we have an ideology, liberals, socialists, and Marxists, who do not want us hopeful. And you look at the black community and you see so little hope because they have controlled that community for so long. The upside is this: 80% of the NBA are black millionaires. 70% of NFL are black millionaires. We have a bunch of black millionaires now with access to billions of dollars every year that can now take part in making sure our communities are changed. So instead of, once this is done, this year is done with, we'll see if they truly are about our communities and willing to invest and mentor, support these kids, or they're going to continue to do what they're doing in the past, do nothing. We'll see how that works out.
And that is a very interesting point to make. Let's go to Randall Hill real quick. I want to get, Randall, I'm not sure how much of that you got because I know we just got you checked in, but what do you make of these protests? I understand that, you know, there are issues in this country. No country is perfect. What do you make of the venue that these players are choosing for in doing this, and the style, I guess? I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about the national anthem, the American flag. It seems it's an interesting venue to try and make this political point. What's your take?
Well, first, let me thank you for having me on so early, and I really appreciate it. You know, it's a peaceful protest, and most of the guys, when they are kneeling and or sitting down, they're actually praying. But you know, it's something that is okay, and I'm still hearing this nonsense about, okay, well, black millionaires or millionaires. That really has nothing to do with anything, because the simple fact is, if they have a venue where they can say what they want to say, then, you know, go ahead and say it. Now, me personally, I believe in standing for the flag. You know, as a former federal agent, you know, I believe in supporting this country, this greatest country on earth. But with that being said, there's nothing wrong with peaceful protests, unlike, you know, other like Charlatan areas where they're mobs actually, you know, going after people.
And that's fine. And let me ask you though, just real quick, just to put Burgess's point back to you real quick, and let me get a response to that. He's saying that you've got, you know, a number of African American athletes in the NFL making a lot of money, and he contends that they really don't care that much about the rest of the black community and the black community that is being affected by this. Obviously, NFL players drive around in, you know, $200,000 cars. They don't really have a problem with police, you know, using excessive force, stuff like that. This is supposedly a problem with lower income portions of the community that Burgess is saying they really don't care that much about that community, and that this is more of a political statement, more of an attention-grabbing statement that started with Colin Kaepernick. What do you say to that?
Well, what I say is I'm a fact finder. So how many of these people has he actually interviewed? How many of these NFL players has he actually interviewed and or talked to? And furthermore, when you talk about the national anthem, when you hear the national anthem, you're supposed to stand up and or show respect. How many people actually listen to it on TV but still sit on their sofas and don't stand up anyway? If Mr. Burgess does that, then I commend him. But I don't know too many people who actually stand up when they're watching TV when they hear the national anthem, not just because people are watching.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, guys, I do appreciate you coming on. I wish we had more time to talk about this because obviously we could talk about this for a half hour, but we got to move on. A lot of the stuff going on this morning. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for getting up very early this morning. All right.
Thank you very much. Take care.
And people at home, share with us what you think. In the meantime, let's go to this Fox News alert for you, though. The FBI just launched a civil rights investigation into a deadly church shooting in Tennessee. The masked gunman opened fire just as Sunday services ended. Now an armed usher is being held as a hero for taking on that shooter. Let's get right to Jillian Neely. She is live for us outside the church in Antioch, Tennessee. Good morning, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning, Heather and Rob. Police wrapped up their investigation late last night. They were out here all day yesterday, scouring the scene, looking for any details that they can to figure out the biggest question of all, why did this happen? Let's take a look at some video from the scene. This is where 39-year-old Melanie Smith was shot and killed yesterday morning around 11 o'clock as she was leaving church services at Burnett Chapel Church. 6 others were injured inside the church when this happened. Here's what we know about the shooter. He's in police custody. He is charged with murder. His name is Emmanuel Sampson. He is a 25-year-old legal U.S. resident. He moved here from Sudan in 1996. Parishioners from this church actually tell us years ago he used to come here for services, but they say they haven't seen him in years. It's been a while, and a lot of people said they didn't recognize him yesterday because he was wearing a mask. Out of this tragedy, we are already hearing a lot of stories of heroism. We were actually here on the scene as police were still wrapping up their investigation last night around 9 p.m. local time. We were talking to a woman who was inside the church when this happened. She said, first of all, she said the pastor is the one who saved her life. She said the pastor immediately yelled for people to get out, to run, as soon as he saw the shooter entering the church. Now, she said he's one of the heroes. We're also hearing about another hero, as you guys mentioned, the usher, 22-year-old Robert Engel. We're told he had an altercation with the gunman inside the church. That's when shots went off. Robert Engel actually ran to his car, got his gun, and kept the gunman under control there until police got to the scene. Now, a lot of people said those two people saved all of their lives. If it weren't for them, this would have been an entirely different outcome. There was a 10-year-old boy who was in the church when this happened. He could not contain his emotions. Listen.
Just heard like 3 gunshots, and the little girl shut the door, and I heard somebody say, "Get down." When I realized they were alive, I just started like pouring out crying. And that's like, I know I'm 10 and I'm supposed to be tough, but I just couldn't hold it in.
No one is tough in a situation like that. The woman we were talking to last night, I asked her directly, I said, did you know what was going on right away? And she said, look, she said, you know the difference between gunfire and fireworks. She said a lot of people get that confused, but when it happens, you know it, guys.
Yeah. No 10-year-old should be expected to be that tough. I mean, come on.
And what an interesting debate this is going to make for gun rights is that the very interesting thing, what would have happened if that usher hadn't gone to his car and had a gun? What would this scene have looked like then? So that'll, I think, refire that debate over whether or not people should be able to, the right to carry arms. And
it was registered. He did have it. It was registered.
All right, Jillian, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Well, the time now is 12 minutes after the top of the hour, and Republicans sweetening the deal to win over holdouts of the plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Congressman Louis Gohmert is live with us next to weigh in.
And while NFL players kneel for the national anthem, NASCAR is taking a stand. The warning that owners are sending to any driver who may want to protest the national anthem.
President Trump signing off on some major updates to his original travel ban, which expired over the weekend. And one of the biggest adjustments, the addition of North Korea, Venezuela, and Chad to the list of travel restrictions. And joining me now to react, Texas Congressman and member of the House Judiciary Committee, Louis Gohmert. Thank you so much for joining us in person this morning.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So the differences with the travel ban now, we've added 3 countries to it, North Korea, Venezuela, and Chad. And what are the impacts of the changes that are being made?
Well, mainly the biggest impact is they've added the reasoning to satisfy the unconstitutionally acting Supreme Court and federal courts by delineating why it is that these countries are not going to be allowed to bring refugees in.
And why is that?
The biggest thing is they're not giving us adequate information in order to know whether or not they're coming in to harm us or not. We don't know whether they're criminals in the country. We don't know if they are violent, have a history of violence. And as has been said before, and now is articulated very nicely within the order, these are countries where they, in a number of cases, they don't have the information to give us.
So they don't have the ability to do their own vetting that would meet our standards.
That's right. And as FBI has said before, look, with Iraq, we had all kinds of information. We even had fingerprints. We had all of the government's criminal records. So we knew pretty well for ourselves whether or not somebody was coming in that was a threat. With regard to Syria, heavens, ISIS has taken over government printing office before. They can print out their own passports and make them look legitimate because they are.
Yeah.
But we don't have any of that information, and the FBI has said before, look, we will vet them, which means comparing the information they've submitted to what we have in our records. But the thing is, for these countries in particular, we don't have any information to compare it against.
And there are 8 countries. Yeah, there are 8 countries now. We mentioned North Korea, Chad, Venezuela, also Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, all included.
Exactly.
So
and Chad is one of those. They're just not giving us enough information.
So if they were able to change some of that, then some of this could change.
That's right.
Okay.
But they would have to give us much more information. And with regard to with some of these countries, I'm not sure Venezuela is going to be able to give us that kind of information.
Right.
In Venezuela, for example, and in Chad, it's hard to know who the good guys are. You know, it's just not a matter of who's wearing the white hats.
Yeah.
These are people that have made a living out of being dangerous but being secretive about it.
So they have a lot to deal with in
That's
those
right.
countries on their own. So healthcare, we have to talk about that and the possibility of that happening again this week. What do you think the chances are first? Give us that.
Well, I think it's better than half because it has to be. And, you know, God bless John McCain. You know, we know that the biggest inhibitor of overcoming cancer is stress. Let him be recalled and go back to Arizona and deal successfully with overcoming the cancer so that we can get good health care for the rest of the country.
What I found interesting with John McCain, he said that he would back it if the governor of Arizona backed it, correct? And
Well,
is the governor of Arizona, he is in favor of it now, right?
That's my understanding. But John McCain basically, by doing that, was saying, look, I'm going to let my decision be made by someone else, hoping that they would not
They would agree with him.
But when he says he would like more bipartisanship, so would we.
Right.
But they passed Obamacare without a single Republican vote. Henry Waxman said, we don't want your support. We don't need your input, so we don't care. And so it is a very, very partisan issue by the Democrats not to support any effort to undo Obamacare, any part of it, even the very harmful parts. So we would love to have Democrat support, but the problem is the Democratic Party has made it a point of saying we're not helping you with any kind of repeal.
But you need Republicans at this point. You need Murkowski, you need Collins, you need Rand Paul possibly.
What we need is the Republicans to keep their word.
Okay.
And all of them but Susan Collins promised. I mean, I was there in Arizona with my friend Paul Gosar. I saw McCain repeatedly saying, I will repeal, I will repeal. Not Kelly Ward, I'll repeal. Well, it turns out we needed either Kelly Ward,
so maybe,
and Kirkpatrick would have been better. Who knows?
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Heather.
We appreciate
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan comparing President Trump to ISIS over the president's brand new expanded travel ban of Muslim-majority countries.
Think about what you're saying, because what you're saying is not dissimilar to what Daesh or so-called ISIS are saying. What do they say? They say there's a clash of civilizations. It's not possible to be a Muslim and a Westerner, and you're inadvertently playing their game.
Well, that's his take. Also, not just Muslim-majority countries, but Venezuela and North Korea added to the list as well. Now, the London mayor's comments come as the president extends that travel ban, including now Chad, Venezuela, and North Korea. Heather.
Well, Milo Yiannopoulos defies UC Berkeley officials by holding an unofficial free speech rally on campus. No factions, USA! No Trump! No KKK! No factions, USA! The conservative speaker facing angry protesters after the school canceled his free speech week that was set to start this past weekend. Well, this comes after violent riots broke out at the university back in February, blocking the former Breitbart editor from speaking with students.
All right, going to the weather now, and parts of the East Coast, believe it or not, bracing for the possibility of life-threatening impacts, maybe a sideswipe from Hurricane Maria.
Well, this just days after the Category 2 storm devastated Puerto Rico. Millions have been left without power and without water.
Yeah, Maria could bring waves, the surge of about 7 feet, and also dangerous riptides along the East Coast. Meteorologist Adam Klotz is tracking that live in the Weather Center. How close is the storm going to get to the East Coast, Adam?
Hey there, guys. Well, the good news is it will not make landfall, and that's really the big story here. It's going to get close enough. Some few folks are going to see impact. You're already beginning to see some rain running up along portions of South Carolina and running you up into North Carolina. Winds are really beginning to weaken at this point. The storm's going to continue to weaken, but here's your track. Lifting to the north, then a sharp turn out to sea. So what are we talking about as far as impacts go? The Carolinas is really it, and just North Carolina. That is a tropical storm watch and warning in place. Impacts are going to start to be felt on Tuesday, lingering into Wednesday, guys.
All right, the Outer Banks hunkering down. Thank you. Well, the time now is about 26 minutes after the top of the hour, and professional football players sending a message to the Trump administration by protesting the national anthem. So how do fans feel about it?
I'm a veteran, so the Marine Corps years, and yeah, I'm dead against that. I'll still root for the Jets. I won't agree with what they do, but I'm still going to root for the Jets.
All right, Army veteran Pete Hegseth here live with that and his thoughts on the protest. Stay tuned. All right, well, the player protests of the national anthem outraging NFL fans across the country.
More than 200 players taking a knee, raising a fist, or sitting down in response to President Trump calling for disrespectful players to be fired.
Yeah, Griff Jenkins live in our nation's capital with details on what appeared to be a choose your side type of Sunday in the NFL. Griff.
Hey, Rob and Heather, you know, most people tune in late to games to see who wins, but all day yesterday they tuned in before the game started as these anthem protests broke out across the country in the NFL. More than 200 players taking a knee during the national anthem. It was in response to President Trump's comments Friday night at a campaign rally in Alabama when he said that kneeling was disrespectful to the flag and calling for owners to make players stand or fire the SOBs that do so. Now, this protest started last year when former San Francisco quarterback Colin Kaepernick took a knee as a personal statement on the state of race relations and policing in America. But yesterday, President Trump made it clear this is about respect, not race.
This has nothing to do with race. I've never said anything about race. This has nothing to do with race or anything else. This has to do with respect for our country and respect for our flag. When you get on your knee and you don't respect the American flag or the anthem, that's not being treated with respect.
In Pittsburgh, an amazing image you see here. One player on the Steelers, Alejandro Villanueva, defying his entire team who actually stayed in the locker room in protest. Villanueva stood proudly by himself there, hand over heart. He is a former Army Ranger with 3 tours in Afghanistan and a Bronze Star. The Steelers released a statement saying our players have stayed unified and have respected the fact that they like our country. There are diverse opinions in our locker room. It is a difficult time in our country. Guys, here in Washington, by the way, the Redskins won. They stood while the Raiders sat on the bench.
Hey.
Hey.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Too
the ones
political.
that
All
were
right.
standing one.
Yeah, Griff, thanks so much.
Well, players say that they're taking a stand by kneeling during the national anthem, but what about those who sacrificed everything for the flag?
That's right. Here to discuss this, Fox and Friends weekend co-host and Army veteran, somebody very passionate about this, as we understand, Pete Hegseth. Pete, what do you think when you see about 200 players kneeling for the national anthem?
Well, it's unfortunate because I don't think they appreciate the reverence that goes with that song. The song's not just about a flag and music. It's about all that goes into making possible how free people live free. And there is a sacrifice. Your ability to stand in a uniform at a game and play a sport was purchased at a price by someone who put a different uniform on with camouflage over the course of 240 years and fought against people who wanted to take away your freedom. So you have the right to protest in this country, no doubt. Pick a different forum. And when you talk to fans, they understand the right of the First Amendment, but they want it to be a different place other than our nation's anthem.
Exactly. It's the venue that I think is so infuriating for a lot of people.
And what about the teams that didn't come out on the field at all?
Yeah, I think a big mistake. I mean, you miss an opportunity. I understand the desire to be united, but someone like Alejandro Villanueva, number 78 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Army Ranger, 3 tours in Afghanistan, he looks at his coach and says, I'm sorry, we're a team, but I served my country on the battlefield. I'm going to walk out there and put my hand over my heart, understanding I lost brothers for this
And from what
anthem.
I understand, his coach reprimanded him for doing that.
Well, there was a subtle reprimand. I mean, and the Rooneys have a long tradition there in Pittsburgh of being great patriots and supporting their country. I think they tried to make it look like we're all together, but when you're all together in the locker room while your nation's anthem is being played, it does send the wrong message, especially in a town like Pittsburgh, a very patriotic town.
And you talked to some fans. You went to MetLife. We had a Giants game yesterday. What did you find? When you
Yes, I went to MetLife Stadium. The Giants and the Jets and the Dolphins were playing yesterday.
Okay,
and we went and talked to some folks outside the stadium. This is what they had to say. If you walk into this stadium today and a good number of Jet players decided to take a knee and protest the national anthem, how would you feel about that?
I would be embarrassed. I'm dead against that. I'm a veteran, served the Marine Corps 8 years, and yeah, I'm dead against that.
It would be a disgrace. It's unethical for them to do that.
I'll still root for the Jets. I won't agree with what they do, but I'm still going to root for the Jets.
I would be disappointed if they did that.
I think a nonviolent protest is absolutely the way to go.
You support what President Trump said when he said, hey, you know, if these guys want to kneel for the anthem, then the owners should be firing these guys.
He's fired. He's fired.
Absolutely. I agree with it 150%.
They're paying these guys to do a job. They're not supposed to be involved in politics.
They're getting paid to do a job, and that's their job, is to play ball and do whatever the fans want them to do.
President Trump maybe should get involved in the games and maybe take a hit and get a concussion and see what happens.
So what would happen if you protested at your work site? What would happen to you?
I'd probably get canned.
I would be fired. I don't think they should get fired over it.
Does it affect how you see your team when you watch folks kneeling for the anthem?
Not at all, because I think that's separate from the game itself.
It's the wrong avenue, because just protest is not the way to do it. You have to have an avenue to make it better.
If they want to express themselves in that way, I think they have the right to, and I don't think they should be held accountable for anything.
Is there a point at which, as a fan, you would step away from the team?
Yes, I would. I'm sorry. It's disgusting.
I have stopped watching a lot of sports and football because of what happened last year.
I'm a Canadian, first of all, but I don't think that's... You have to respect the country you're in and the other people that are fighting for you. Why should you take a knee? And I just don't get it.
You got Canadians out here rallying for the United States of America.
Absolutely. Amen.
It's good. Canadians love it.
Brother.
Oh. Amen. Thank you. Canada! Every good package about the Star Spangled Banner ends with the Canadian, of course.
Yeah.
But you have two sides. You have patriots who love their country. They also love their team, and they don't want to see that politics intermix. There's no reason to, and that was the overwhelming message that we see.
What do you think we see next week? More players?
You know what? It kind of depends on how the rhetoric, if it ratchets up or not. We may have reached a high water mark. Maybe, because this was the moment to do it if you're going to do it, and from here on out, if you don't have a cause that's clear or the issue doesn't push forward, who knows? Well, that's the question. What is your protest? Are you protesting the president?
Yes, that's what they're doing.
Our country?
Yeah.
We'll see.
If you have a right to take a knee, which they do, I think that's the reason they should be standing, because they have that right.
Great point.
You know?
I like it.
Pete, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
All right, 36 minutes after the hour, it's being called the first political litmus test of the Trump administration. So why is the Alabama Senate race so critical, and what does it mean for 2018 and all the midterms? We debate. You decide. Stay tuned. Now to a Fox News alert. The FBI just launched a civil rights investigation into a deadly church shooting in Tennessee. A masked gunman opening fire just as Sunday services ended inside that church. Now, an armed usher that was at the church is being hailed a hero for taking on the shooter. Jillian Mealy is live outside that church in Antioch, Tennessee this morning. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you, Rob. That 22-year-old usher, his name is Robert Engel. He is being called a hero this morning. So here's what we're told happened. The gunman went inside the church. The usher, Robert Engel, got into some kind of altercation with the gunman. At that point during the altercation, the gunman was shot. Robert Engel runs out to his car, gets his gun, brings it in, holds the man at gunpoint until police arrive. Parishioners and police are calling him a hero.
He's the hero. He's the person that stopped this madness, and so we're very, very, very grateful to him.
People also saying the pastor saved them as well. The pastor actually shouted. He saw the gunman enter the church, yelled to people to run, to get out of the church as quickly as they could. So both of those people being called a hero this morning. 39-year-old Melanie Smith was shot and killed just outside of the church as she was leaving Sunday services around 11 o'clock yesterday morning. 6 others were injured inside that church. We do have a photo of the gunman. His name is 25-year-old. His name is Emmanuel Sampson. He is a 25-year-old legal U.S. resident. We are told he moved here from Sudan in 1996. Parishioners from the church actually tell us he used to go to Sunday services here, but they haven't seen him in years. He is in police custody and charged with murder. Heather.
All right, Jillian Mealy live for us. Thank you, Jillian. Well, switching gears now, Vice President Pence is heading to Alabama today to campaign for Luther Strange as the Senate special election heats up there. So how will this outcome impact the 2018 midterms? Here to debate it is Democratic strategist Marcy Stech and CEO of Go Big Media and Republican strategist Philip Stutz. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So, Philip, I'll start with you. Big race in Alabama. Yeah. Roy Moore at this point leading Strange by 10 points, 50 to 40%. Who do you think wins?
Yeah, it's going to come down to the wire. Look, I'm from Alabama. I've seen Roy Moore. I've seen this, what he's been doing for about 20, 25 years now. I kind of view him as a carnival barker in a way. And I know that Luther Strange has the endorsement of the president. The vice president, like you said, is in town today. It's going to be very, very close. Luther Strange came in second by 25,000 votes in the primary a few weeks ago. So he's got to make up some ground. It's coming down to the edge. And really, that's the reason the president stepped in and endorsed Luther, was to get him, over the top right now.
Because he thinks that he can beat the Democratic candidate moving forward. So, Marcy, what do you think? How will this impact this particular race? Why is it important moving forward to the midterms?
Sure. Well, I think it's a big test for the president of the United States. The fact that he's having to deploy resources, head down to the state, at a state that should be a slam dunk for Republicans, it really does say a lot about the fact that he's divided his own party rather than united them. And I think that it's significant for Tuesday's race, but it's also significant for the 28 midterms. We've got other potential Republican primaries in Arizona, in Nevada. It's going to show that Donald Trump has divided the party and not united it. I think Tuesday is going to be a big test for that.
Philip, what do you think?
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, look, we've had 5 special elections since Election Day in November, and Trump's won every one he's endorsed. Look, he's not going to have a perfect record, but I think he's going to get Luther over the top here. And remember, this is a Republican primary. This isn't dividing the country. This is 2 Republicans running in the state of Alabama.
Well, it's dividing his own party, and I think that's significant.
Yeah, well, that's what's called a primary.
All right, so let's move on. And speaking of division and divisiveness, let's talk a little bit more about this NFL and the protests that happened this past Sunday. Over 200 NFL players took a knee. Actually, some of the people that sang the national anthem, I believe 2 different people at 2 different games, took a knee after they sang the anthem. Marcy, what do you think about this in terms of dividing the country and the president, what he had to say about it and everything that's followed?
Sure. Well, I think the president wants you to think that this is about the flag, but it's really about the right to peaceful protests in this country. And I think that we've seen over the weekend solidarity among players, among coaches, owners of the NFL. They all believe, as I do, that people should be allowed to express their views in the way this country allows us to.
But he didn't say that they didn't have a right to do it. He said they had a right to do it, but he also said that the owners of the teams had a right to fire them, and it was his opinion that he thought they should.
The president attacked these players. He attacked Steph Curry. He attacked the franchise for people speaking out and expressing their views on our country. That's what makes our country great, is that we have the ability to do this peacefully. They're not turning the backs on the flags. They're not burning the flag. This is an opportunity for them to express themselves using their platforms as leaders of this country and leaders in their field. And I think that this is an important moment for us to take a step back and remember that this issue is a lot bigger than us on this television right now.
This started out as a protest against police violence a year ago. So I'm not sure what the protest is now, because you don't hear that anymore. The one thing Marcy left out is that there is no solidarity with the fans, and that's where Donald Trump taps into his strength, which is saying what he has said, especially at the rally the other night. And then the fans agree with us. Look, I've seen the polling. It's unbelievable. Like, people forget that the people that support the players right now are in New York. They're in L.A. They're forgetting about flyover country. They're forgetting that people want to go to sporting events and forget about politics. And by the way, at these sporting events, it's where blacks and whites come together. It's where people from different backgrounds come together. They all cheer for one common goal, and that is their team. No one wants to talk politics or see politics on the field. That's what what it is, and that's what Trump has tapped into.
Yeah, it is kind of like just inching itself into everything. I mean, entertainment, sports, you just can't escape politics these days. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate the conversation. Will, of course, continue. Marcy, Phillip, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. But now let's check in with Ryan Kilmeade to see what's coming up on Fox and Friends. I have a feeling we're going to talk a little bit more about this as well.
Yes, we are. We're going to be talking about what's happening, and great to see you, Heather. We talked about complete coverage on the national anthem protests which took place. Maybe over 150 players doing it in 13 different games. We'll discuss that with two former NFLers, Randall Hill and Burgess Owens, on both opposite sides of this issue. Amongst our other guests, David Webb will be with us, and Sean Hannity will be joining us live as he starts his show at 9 a.m. One of the topics we're talking about, the future of health care, tax reform, and what the president is going to be doing this week, including a special election on Tuesday in Alabama. What is on the line for the White House? We'll discuss it all when Fox and Friends get started on this Monday, and I urge you, please get dressed.